It's always nice to have an ongoing community event for people to be able to express themselves. And you wouldn't believe the stories I heard just, sitting around the old guys' table here, man. It's a beautiful place. It's been a little while since the last season. I've been up to a couple of things. I've been participating in some community agriculture in Wailuku in Hawaii, and just sort of absorbing the static that's in the air in the season, wondering about the state of the world, and wanting to continue to do my own thing, not get too distracted by everybody's drama. Along that, I kept mindful of what it is that I need, and what popped up on Facebook was this dating site called Meeting Mindful. So I was like, what the fuck, I'll try it out, It's like, not for everybody, but it might be a way to meet some more age-appropriate women. Who knows? But I'm not going to tell you about that. It was a horrible experience. It was a horrifying experience. That's a story for another day. Don't try it. I mean, go ahead and try it, but for me, it wasn't that great. And I was talking to my friend West about it. And he laughed, and he said, Meeting Mindful, beware of anyone advertising themselves as spiritual, mindful, or conscious. He says he knows the type, and they're all about love and light, but they won't say hi to you on the beach, right? He says he can judge anyone. He has this system. He can judge anyone by the first few seconds of your interaction of whether they're trying to lift you up or tear you down. And I think he might be onto something. But I always try and think of, what's going on with the other person, where they're coming from. And I think, where this animosity, this mistrust may be coming from is, why we aren't all just sweetness and light to each other everywhere we go. It's just this feeling of lackness, this lack of fulfillment that we're all experiencing. I know that I'm the most generous of spirit when I feel safe and secure, and I'm well fed, and I'm intellectually stimulated, and it helps to feel loved. And I know I'm at my worst when I'm feeling scared or hustled or trapped. And so when I'm wondering about, in the most abundant country on the earth, how do we get this feeling of scarcity, that we're forced to compete like crabs in a pot of boiling water? Like somehow the pie is shrinking, and if I don't get my pie now, if I don't get my piece, there won't be enough later. There won't be enough to go around, and why can't we see that we're actually the chef of the kitchen, and we could grow the pie by sharing? I've met orphans in Mexico that have nothing. They live in a trash heap, and they're some of the happiest people I've met. And I go home to America, and I see these kids that have everything they need materially, and yet they don't appreciate it. They always want more and more. They're complaining. And the truth is, there's plenty enough to go around. We just don't share. Some people hoard way more than they need, and most people in the world go without enough. Now, what if profit was taken out of the question or the equation for the things that we all need, like food and water and shelter and healthcare and education and love? And what if we shared all of these things in a growing pool that's committed individuals and communities contributing the best of what we have to offer? Okay, take for example, it's worked before, of a supposedly primitive Hawaiian society that existed before in the ascendancy of King Kamehameha, using Captain Cook's captured cannons. Millions of people lived on the relative peace in the Hawaiian Islands for thousands of years. And a number is similar to today's population. And how did they do it without exporting anything or raiding each other's islands? What they did is they realized that each neighborhood or ala nui could have all the resources that it could possibly need as long as they had free access to a corridor that extended from the mountains to the sea, from Mauka to Makai. And they set out these spokes on a wheel to radiate outwards from a spiritual hub in the center, where people could go to for guidance, but not necessarily governance. And they made it work because they shared everything with their extended family. Before commerce and refrigeration, they had a system of abundance. Only one person from each neighborhood had to go fishing in a day, and everyone ate. The next day the job rotated, and most people spent their days on more joyful pursuits. Cultural intermixing was common between the Alehouse and even minor disputes, as between families. But warfare was never called for because people had everything they needed within each corridor. So once the idea of scarcity, read money, was introduced and sharing broke down, each small nuclear family had to provide for itself. And the labor and stress for each unit is increased tenfold. The excess fish is hoarded for cash and trinkets, and the reef is depreciated, leading to true poverty on the island. And today the Hawaiian residents export 90% of their food, and most of it's unhealthy and inexpensive. Native Hawaiians are some of the poorest population in the country, and many of them can't afford to live on their own island. In fact, most Hawaiians live in Las Vegas, more than do in the islands. So how do we get back to the world that they lived in before the big chief patriarchal system took over in a war of conquest using Cook's weapons and created the central government that was created eventually and annexed by the US? How do we get back to that? I think we start with what remains at the core of the Polynesian culture, which is the ability of her people, despite everything they've been put through, to display aloha spirit. And what is that? It's to give love without expectation of being returned. It's the natural inclination to give your neighbor a boost, even if it doesn't benefit you directly or immediately. To share and trade respectfully and not take more than you need. So how does that look in the future? What if the commerce of the future wasn't an arbitrary stuff that you can't use or eat, like cash or gold, but instead, your net worth was based upon your ability to look someone in the eye and interact to the point where you could have a transaction and come to a mutually agreeable exchange of goods or services. Terrifying prospect, right? Radical change. But I think it's something that we have in our hearts. It's something that if you roll up your sleeve and you say, hey, no tricks involved, it just has to work for both of us, right? What if we use this new form of commerce for all the stuff that we needed? Okay, and we put all the silly play money aside for the rest of the stuff, just playing, right? And what if we created a place that we provided all that we needed by sharing what we have? And since we know that what we have collectively is more than plenty, we just have to we have to change our idea of what could be bought and sold. So, call me a bliss ninny. Somebody called me a bliss ninny when I talk about this. But I believe, like, what's going on in the world, we need more bliss ninny ideas, and I believe the potential for them to actually happen is greater now than at any point in our history, because information technology has the ability to connect these communities, right? You know, that we are willing to share and provide a roadmap for each other and how to live and where to go, instead of just isolating ourselves in these consumer boxes, right? We can find a way to connect with each other again and live a more natural, lasting way. I've seen it happen in modern times even. When the recession hit, businesses that had little cash or credit, only debt, right? So we had to start trading with one another so that we could go about normal life without making things worse. In the meantime, we maintained our business-to-business relationships, which is way more valuable than cash. In time, a trade economy emerged, and it enabled me to provide dental care for my 7-person crew, something I couldn't even afford to do for myself before. All right, Santa Cruz Mountain Breweries was one of the first businesses that Clutch Courier had this kind of relationship with. We continued to provide them with marketing services in exchange for beer and burgers, because we were coming here anyway, and we didn't want to lose a client just because they may have less money in their budget for advertising. And it's been a beautiful, uplifting, and ongoing thing, just like Alehouse Narratives, right? You just have to take that step of changing your perspective, and I was trying to attempt to articulate this new shared set of values, or this old set of values, and I want to see how they could come up into practice, and I wrote this declaration of interdependence, which is that we propose to form a new nation, not based on any capture or claim of territory, but a nation declared without boundaries, founded on the sovereign promise and principle of its people to provide for each other the basic human needs, free of commerce or coinage, but instead with a mutually agreed upon fair exchange. This is the price and the privilege of citizenships. We hold these rights to be sustenance, shelter, healthcare, education, and love. And as our pool of resources and knowledge to share grows, the shackles of scarcity are removed. Our basic needs are met, the human potential is unlocked for creative problem solving and joy. The importance of money as a goal and a symbol of success, it begins to go away. The contributions and the culture of the new nation will serve as a powerful example to the rest of the world. We provide sustenance and food and water because there's plenty to go around if we're not greedy or unhealthy about it. Nutrition is a basic human right that can be provided universally with fair trade. Shelter, you house the homeless in exchange for what they can contribute to the community. The same for everyone else. Healthcare, there won't be a profit to making people sick. Instead, healthcare practitioners and medicine makers will be fairly compensated, but only to the level of providing for their own good health. Education and information, when access to all human knowledge is given freely, any problem is collectively solvable. Think about it. Intellectual freedom and the unleashing of our curiosity is the key to our survival. And love, it's the most important. It's the most fundamental underpinning, the thing that we all need. Is where all our power is sourced. And like anywhere, if you give love without expectation of it being returned, you may live a good life. And those that still have the capacity for love in their heart, they're welcome in our country. As long as you're living, you deserve to be loved back. So are you with us?
Yeah, Rick.
All right, thank you. That's a little bit different than I usually do. You know, it's usually a story or poetry, so thanks for getting up on my soapbox routine. I think it's good to like dream a little big sometimes, you know. And I'm going to end up with just 3 short poems. Thanks for bearing with me and indulging this. A little bit about what I've been talking about, you know, and it's the catharsis of poetry itself. I'm reminded of a New Yorker quote that I saw. It's like, poetry is like the truth. Unfortunately, most people fucking hate poetry. So think of yourselves as the brave few that are willing to face the truth and participate in it, you know, and I thank you. How I hate my family has torn itself apart, and how we continue to pick at the wounds. I hate the dark secrets, betrayal and begrudgment, the misunderstanding and distrust. I hate the vast distance between us. That being said, I love you. I'll do my best, knowing I'm sorry, but I'll have no regrets. So I came back from Hawaii, and I was going through the parking lot of McDonald's, and I saw a bunch of, you know, younger kind of rapscallions. I call them scallywags. It made me feel like, yeah, I'm back in Santa Cruz. So I wrote this poem. When I see scallywags, I feel at home. Same when I hear roosters. As I sift through financial statements, I'm scared of nuclear war popping up on my phone first thing in the morning, all my adult life. How does this add up, that I keep turning over leaves to form new relationships and hope, only to break them down again like so much compost for a pile that's already out of control and looming over my life? I listen for the clues and conversations of the old man sitting around the breakfast table at McDonald's. They're talking about Boeing airplanes that can fit maybe 420 people or more. Dryly stated with a singe of contempt, I recognize I've begun to use when things are too big or too new. Drinking coffee in the backyard with the sunshine on my face, it dawns on me that my neighbor, whom I only know as Coughing Lady, is nowhere to be heard and hasn't been for days. I hope she's okay. That one was called How Neighborly of Me. This last one, thank you. It's for all the poets that might think that, this is an intimidating thing to do, and it is, but you gotta work your heart and your bravery every now and then to keep it flexible, right? So for the next group of poets up here, and for everybody that just wants to, tell your truth, this is for you. There'll always be someone who won't return your smile, who can't understand because you don't fit their style. You be you, like the weed pushing through concrete. Beautiful because he don't know where he ain't supposed to grow. Thank you.